Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins at Mount Holliston, a New England ski resort. Dan Walker, Joe Lynch, and Dan's girlfriend Parker O'Neill travel to the mountain for a ski trip. Dan and Joe are childhood best friends, and have an annual ski trip as a ritual. Joe usually flirts with a ski lift operator to get cheaper tickets, but this time, a man takes her place. Parker is forced to flirt with the operator, and approaches the man to ask him for a cigarette. Meanwhile, Joe complains that Dan is taking his girlfriend on a men-only excursion. It is clear that Parker does not like him. Joe thinks she won't have as much fun because she can't even ski. Dan apologizes, explaining that he thought taking her along would be good, because it would allow them to bond. Soon, she manages to convince the lift operator to let them go up at a discount, and the boys are happy. They finally get on the lift, and their adventure begins. Dan and Parker have been together for a short time, and she complains that he does not call her sweet names. On the ride, Joe criticizes her for smoking too much, prompting her to respond with an insult. Dan stands between the two and tries to handle the situation. When she begins to talk about her problems, the boys tell her that they are here to relieve stress. She needs to enjoy this weekend. The elevator abruptly stops working, and the passengers express their discontent. Parker seems calm, but she is afraid of heights. Joe teases her about it, while Dan tries to console her. Eventually the elevator starts working again, and they reach the top. The boys then force Parker to put on the case, although she is ashamed, because only children use it. Dan notices a girl who has fallen, and tries to help her, but her boyfriend suddenly arrives and pushes him. The girl scolds him, saying Dan only wanted to help her. The situation calms down, and Dan gets to know the girl. Then the trio go skiing and have fun together. However, Parker's slowness prevents Dan and Joe from having fun. She falls every few minutes, irritating Joe even more. They return from the mountain at night and stop at a cabin. The boys discuss the disastrous hike over pizza. Joe suggests they take the last elevator to the top of the mountain, and ski like they used to. Parker overhears their talk, and apologizes for interrupting their travel plans. Dan feels sorry for her, and invites her to rejoin them. She wants to stay at the hotel, arguing that she does not like skiing anyway, but he insists. So the three pick up their things, and head for the ski lift. In the meantime, Joe meets again with the girl he helped, and they agree to ski together next week. The operator blocks the lifts just as they arrive. He is the same one Parker flirted with to get tickets. The gang begs him to let them go one more time, but the man chuckles, saying they had not paid the full price the previous time. In addition, the ski lift is closed due to a storm, so it cannot resume operations. The operator is adamant on not letting them go, but agrees for an extra $100. The gang climbs the lift, excitedly watching the skiers below. Meanwhile, a colleague approaches the lift operator and informs him of next week's schedule. The operator responds saying he will not be at work next week, due to his brother's wedding. Before leaving, he warns him that 3 people are still on the elevator, and he should not turn it off until they return. After the manager leaves, the man notices 3 people going up the mountain. He assumes that these are the people mentioned by the operator and stops the elevator, not realizing that Dan, Joe and Parker are still on board. When the elevator stops, the group initially considers it a minor inconvenience. Joe yells in frustration, but everyone has already left the lift station. Also, the temperature drops by the second, making them shiver, despite their warm clothes. They discuss the worst ways they could die, to keep interest alive, while they are in the dark about what lies ahead. They stay for a few minutes, before panicking when the lights go out. They now know that the elevator did not stop because of a malfunction, but was stopped on purpose. They start screaming, in the hope that someone will hear them. Parker panics, claiming that no one knows they are here, but Dan believes the elevator stopped because of a power outage, and that they will be rescued shortly. Panicked, the couple begins to argue. As she cries in despair, Dan considers jumping off, even though they are at a fairly high altitude. She quickly remembers that it is Sunday, and the ski resort will not open until next Friday. If no one comes looking for them, they will be stuck for over a week. The friends assure each other that everything will be fine, but their expressions read panic. Later, Joe needs to pee, but having no other choice, he lifts the metal bar and pees from the elevator. Parker also needs to do so, but decides to wait. She sighs with disdain, while Dan remains silent. Then suddenly, it begins to snow. The storm the operator warned them about arrives, compounding their problems. Some time later, a snowplow approaches, prompting the group to shout to get the driver's attention. Eventually, the driver stops just below the group. They are relieved to be rescued. But as it turns out, the man had not heard or seen them. and had simply stopped because of the snowstorm. He contacts his commander, who orders him to turn back immediately. As a result, the man backs up, as the group yells at him to stop. Unfortunately, because of the storm, he cannot hear them. The boys hurl their ski equipment at the stranger, but he ignores them and goes away. As the temperature drops lower and lower, Joe tries to talk about silly things, to calm himself down. Parker is still panicking, and Dan tries to calm her down with words, while Joe continues to talk about other things. Soon after, Parker takes off her gloves to smoke, but they accidentally fall off the elevator. Dan realizes that they will freeze to death if they do not find a solution right away. So the only way out for the group is for one of them to jump. Dan offers to jump, and believes it will be okay, because the ground is covered with snow. Joe tries to dissuade him, saying they should wait until morning, but he is adamant. Parker and Joe insist on talking him out of it, but he throws his snowboard to the ground, and jumps off the elevator. Unfortunately, when Dan falls, he breaks both his legs the moment he hit the ground. The other two ask if he is okay, but he only hears mumbling for a few seconds. He is shocked to discover bones protruding from both knees. He can no longer get down the mountain to get help, and is now stuck on the snow. He screams in panic that both of his legs are bleeding. Parker throws the scarf at him, in hopes that he will use it to stop the bleeding, but it ends up on top of a tree. Joe then rolls the scarf into a ball and throws it to his friend. It rests close by, but when Dan tries to get closer, the bone protrudes considerably more. After tying the scarf around his legs, he asks Joe to rise up on the suspension cable, and reach the nearest support tower. Joe can climb down using the ladders in each of the towers. He hesitates, saying he is unable to perform even one pull, but ultimately agrees to do it for his best friend. The two are about to leave, when they hear growling nearby. A pack of wolves has picked up the scent of Dan's blood, and is approaching. Dan panics and shouts for help, further attracting the wolves. Joe climbs to the top of the elevator, but falls because of the icicles. Suddenly, a wolf appears in front of Dan, and snarls at him. He remains motionless, afraid to act. Parker throws her snowboard at the animal, causing it to flee. However, he soon finds himself surrounded by a swarm of wolves. He feels he has no chance of survival, and asks Joe not to allow Parker to look down, as the animals surround him. Joe sobs into Parker's face as the beasts consume Dan. After a while, all is silent. The only sound that can be heard is the howling of wolves in the distance. Parker accuses Joe of pressuring Dan to jump earlier. He defends himself, saying he urged him not to. The two argue and begin blaming each other for Dan's death. Eventually, they embrace and cry. As the two fall asleep, the night passes. Parker wakes up in the morning with her hand wrapped around the metal bar she was holding during sleep. They try to remove it, but the hand, like the bar, is frozen, but they painfully loosen the grip. The two have suffered severe frostbite, and will not be able to spend another day in the elevator. Joe suggests they try to reach the support tower again, but Parker suggests they wait a few hours, and see if anyone comes looking for them. After a while, he falls asleep, and she pees herself, crying. When she wakes up, the two discuss various aspects of their lives. He tells her how he and Dan met in elementary school. He feels, since Dan died trying to help them, his death should not be forgotten. He then climbs up the seat, in an attempt to reach a support tower. This time, the icicles have melted, making it easier to continue. However, as he sits down, a screw in the bolt holding the chair to the cable comes dangerously loose, causing the chair to wobble. He manages to reach the other chair, but his palms bleed from the cable. He refuses to give up, and climbs the support tower, where a lone wolf awaits them on the ground. Parker throws her ski pole to the ground, to help him fight the wolf. He eventually makes it down, but is attacked by the animal, but he manages to get his hands on the stick, and snatches it. He hurriedly slips on his snowboard, and starts skiing down the mountain, as a pack of wolves is behind him. Parker admonishes him as he disappears into the mountain. She is now alone in the cold, waiting for Joe to return with help. Hours pass, and he does not return. She is certain that the wolves have found him, but she continues to hope for his safety. She waits until the next morning, but he does not return. She then moves around the seat, causing the bolt to move faster. Eventually, the seat slides to the ground, and lands directly on her legs, shattering them. She gathers her thoughts, and slides downhill on the snow. Eventually, she comes upon the horrific scene of Joe's remains. Before she can react, she spots a wolf in front of her. Because the creature is satiated from devouring Joe, it does not attack. Parker manages to reach the side of the road, and lies down to wait for help. Eventually, Someone picks her up in a car and drives away. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications and leave a like to help the channel out.